I can't help myself. I love a good fashion chat. I love clothing. I love fashion. I love designing. From the moment I learned to sew, I swear fashion has been in my blood, and just the thrill of the hunt going thrift shopping. It's like the biggest adrenaline rush. It's like one of my favorite things ever. But what I wanted to discuss and what we're going to talk about is we're going to be doing a fashion haul. It's going to be Shein. I accidentally refer to this as a Shein haul through the entire video, but this is actually a Romwe haul. To be fair, they are the same company. So anytime I say Shein, just assume that I mean Romwe. And when I do these hauls, I always like to be kind of story time and information heavy. Sometimes I sound a bit like a broken record, but I know that a lot of you are new, but it's also sometimes information that bears repeating because I've been on both sides of the coin, and it's important that we remember sometimes, like with myself, where sometimes I catch myself being a little bit judgmental. I need to remember where I came from, and I need to understand that at any point in my life, I can find myself back there or worse. So it's important to stay humble. So when I say give people a little bit more grace, like we're doing a Shein haul right now, and I'm going to get into it, and I'm going to be very, very honest because honesty is important. If it sucks, I'm going to tell you. However, what's really important is that, and I know this is going to sound very harsh, it's important that it's said. A lot of you who shop in places like Zara and H&M and spend these higher prices for items, you'll quickly turn your nose up and criticize, and really aggressively so criticize the people who are forced to rely upon fast fashion and forced to utilize it, failing to realize that Zara, H&M, Forever 21, all of those stores, most of those stores that you find in the mall, they are all fast fashion as well. And just because it has a higher price tag doesn't change anything. So you really should bear that in mind before casting a stone. So that being said, why do people have to rely on fast fashion? So in situations like this, I often like to use myself as an example because I've been, like I said, on both sides. So I've been in some very scary situations. And at the time, it seemed normal to me. It seemed just like life, like what things were supposed to be like. And now in hindsight, as an adult, I realize that it's a really screwed up way to live. I can get further into that, but that's a whole other subject. But that being said, I did not have health insurance till much later in life. And when I was younger, early 20s, I lived on my own and I didn't have any health insurance. And there were times where I was absolutely terrified of getting sick. There were times I got sick and I couldn't afford to go to the doctor. Who could afford the $100 to $175 to just walk into a doctor's office and get whatever medication you need? So there have been so many occasions where I've had to call friends and family in the hopes that they had antibiotic on hand so that I could rid myself of whatever I was dealing with at the time. It was usually tonsil infections. I had really bad tonsils. And I would often say, hey, got strep again, or I have tonsillitis. Do you have any antibiotic? Something that someone should never have to do. It's a situation nobody should ever have to be in, but at the same time, it's a situation that a person would find themselves in to where there is no way in hell that they can afford to buy themselves clothes. And I know that one of the main things that a lot of you are going to say, well, why don't you just go to the thrift store? Duh. There are a lot of reasons why somebody doesn't go to the thrift store. And many of those reasons you've told me your reasons. I wish I can go to the thrift store, but the thrift store in my area, the only thing that gets donated are like used Carhartt paint splattered overalls or old Bibles and pots and pans. There's nothing there for me to wear. Or I happen to be a plus size, and plus sizes are impossible to come by in thrift stores. Or the thrift stores in my area, they jack up the prices because they know that like vintage is now a TikTok trend. Or the thrift stores in my area are picked cleaned by resellers, and they're put on places like Poshmark or Depop for like quadruple the price. All of which I have seen in many instances. I used to live in the south of Florida, and the thrift stores there at the time sucked. So I get with what a lot of you are talking about, and I've seen the resellers. So I understand a lot of that. But that being said, there are a lot of other reasons why a person would find themselves in a financial situation, why they can't afford clothes. You have a health condition and you are on a fixed income. You have to pay for medications. You're unable to work. There are so many things. Or you are working, but you're stretched so thin that the only option for you is fast fashion. And something that I say, and something that I stand by, and I can't tell you how to live your life. This is just sort of my opinion and what I believe should really be the case. And what I believe is that fast fashion should not be used frivolously. It should not be something that someone who is able to afford clothing uses because they can get more bang for their buck. So instead of getting 5 outfits, they can get like a truckload delivered to their door. That's wasteful. It's not sustainable. It's just not the right way to kind of go about it. And what I think the right way to go about it is you use it when you need it, and once you find yourself in a better situation to where you can afford to actually support that independent designer, or even take a sewing class, maybe buy a sewing machine if you so desire, then obviously you kind of go that route. But it's something that really, when you're in a situation financially to where it is honestly the difference between paying a bill and buying groceries, fast fashion is sometimes, it's a necessity. So in the past, what I like to do is I like to show people how to shop sustainably by way of buying things that are going to last. And normally what I like to recommend are things like basics. And the reason that I recommend basics is because they don't date. And what I mean by that is when you buy something that's trending, something that is like a very popular style for the moment, something that is very showy or elaborate, it's going to go out of style, and it's going to last you as long as you get sick of it. And now you're stuck with this thing and you're like, okay, it's cheesy now. It was cool when I had it, but I'm not going to wear big puff princess sleeves and stripes. I'm not going to do it, because there are a lot of styles that do trend, but as quick as they're in, they're out. So basics are really the way to go. Go with your basic blacks. V-necks, U-necks, these are things that are classic. They're not going to go out of style, and you're able to sort of combine them with other things. And they're one of those things, those pieces where I always like to say that you could wear the same thing, like say the same basic dress the whole week, and just accessorize it differently. Nobody would ever know the difference, unless of course you spill soup or something on yourself. But as long as you keep yourself clean, no one's going to know. And I think something like that is so important. So the basics, those are things that are never going to date. They're never going to go out of style. And they change along with your accessories or whatever you are personally bringing to the table. So one thing that I learned by way of thrifting and kind of learning how to DIY in my late teens, early 20s, is that not all polyesters are created equal. So to me, polyester was that 1960s dress that you found in the thrift store that was super thick, really scratchy, coarse material. And it turns out that's not the case. Polyester happens to be a very versatile thing. You can find them very cheap and very abrasive, or something that you would genuinely believe was a cotton jersey knit, but it turns out it's polyester. So what is important is to learn which polyesters to stay away from and which ones to kind of incorporate. That's the tough part. In my experience, what I find is look for a shine. If you see in the photos, and what's also very important, look for customer reviews. So if you're on a website like Shein, scroll down to the bottom on anything that you like, and there's going to be customer reviews. Read those reviews. Also look at any pictures that they might have. And looking at those pictures, if you find there's a bit of a shine to it, it's going to be a cheap polyester, and you might want to stay clear of that. So polyester is good when it's added as a blend. So some of the fabrics that I tend to like are things like, obviously, cotton. I love a good jersey. So cotton, modal. So other synthetic fabrics that will kind of mimic cotton are things like viscose, polyester, modal. I forget the others, but they tend to be mixed. So a good blend might work for you. Cotton elastane or cotton lycra or cotton spandex. What that really means is you're going to have a stretch cotton. So that elastane or that spandex that's getting added for stretch, and you're going to find that it's going to have a little bit of give to it. A lot of t-shirts are made from that blend. You're going to find the same with things like viscose, modal, and all of those things. And just be careful with the polyester. I used to say stay clear of it, but it's kind of hard to avoid these days because there are a lot of places that used it. And I know that I mentioned Zara earlier, and I happen to love that brand. I love that designer. But something that I noticed is that when I say stay away from polyester, I happen to look at some of the fabric content of a lot of my Zara pieces, and it says it straight in there. It says polyester. So things that I thought were these really incredibly beautifully well-made things with high-end fabric, it turned out to be polyester. So again, not all polyesters are created equal, so use your best judgment. Something else that's really important to know is that you should never take anything as a loss. If, for example, you order anything from these companies, particularly Shein, and you receive it, it's of poor quality, it's badly sewn, it has, say, tears in it, it is made from a poor quality fabric, anything like that, utilize the returns process. Make sure you provide details, you take photos. They will give you your money back. They'll send you a return shipping label to ship the item back to them. And if the pictures that you take are bad enough, they will say, you know what, just keep it. When you're on such a tight budget, there's no reason that you should even waste $1, let alone however much you spent on an item, if you can't wear it. So you may as well make those dollars work for you, and don't let a company get away with providing you with crappy merchandise, because if it doesn't look like the picture, that is dishonest, and we cannot tolerate dishonesty. So like I said, normally what I like to do is I like to promote very basic items, things that aren't showy in any way, things that aren't elaborate in any way, things that you can accessorize because they will last you for a long time. But in this case, I'm very curious, and I've been curious, as a lot of these companies are kind of doing a little bit more goth sort of looks. I've been curious as to what that looks like in person, because it could look like one thing here. And a lot of the things are really nice, and a lot of the things are quite affordable. And I know many of you who, again, are on that budget are looking at these items and wondering, okay, I like this. It's attractive to me, but is it worth it? How was it made? And I, like you, am very curious, but I don't have to shell that money out because they sent it to me for free. So I have, no loss there. So I'm going to review those things for you. I picked a few items, and I'm going to give you a very, very honest review. And I tell them every time, if something sucks, I'm going to tell people. So don't expect me to fluff things up, but they just keep saying, yeah, here's stuff, and they just let me pick things. So I'm happy that I'm able to do that for you, because I don't want you wasting your money. So without further ado, I'm going to do I haven't looked at these. I opened the bag, but I didn't look at anything inside, so. Okay. First one, quite heavy. I like when it takes me a while to do these because I don't actually know what's inside them. I don't remember a lot of the items that I got. Like, I remember this one now, but I remember the thought process behind why I chose the things that I did, and a lot of it was nurturing my younger self, because when I was around the age that I would have really loved these things, and I love this now, but when I was around that age, I was unable to really do anything in the way of self-care. Everything was about surviving and making sure bills were paid. One of the things that I would do for myself, you're going to find this so cheesy, is on Friday nights, I would go down the street to the local grocery store, and I don't know if you have these in your bakery, but in the bakery section, a lot of times they will sell individual slices of cake, and I would get myself one slice of 7-layer chocolate cake, and I would watch an 80s movie, and that was like my thing. That was like my treat. That I would like. That was my form of self-care, but it was like a big deal for me. So I'm gonna show the camera, and I'm also gonna try these on for you, but I'm gonna show you. Here we go. So it is a maxi dress. So it is a maxi dress. It has a crisscross back, and it has a mesh overlay, and the print on it is done in a velvet, and it made me think of cameos. And as you can see, I used to collect cameos whenever I used to find them in the thrift store. I love them so much, and of course through the whole course of time they became lost. I don't know where they are. I hope they're in happy places. They were beautiful. So from what I can see, oh, this is green underneath. Check it out. That I was not expecting. So it is sort of an olive color with the black overlay of mesh that has sort of embossed, not really embossed, but a velvet kind of print on it in sheer. It's actually pretty well made. You can feel there's a weight to it. And to me, I don't know if you think this, but when I find that things are weighty, by holding them in my hand like a fabric, to me that's like, oh, that feels like better quality. Like when I was running my Etsy shop and I was making clothing from scratch, I always bought cotton jersey knit. And the store that I purchased from, they would get it from different suppliers every time. And I always loved it when they got it from this one supplier because there was one that was just so heavy and so thick. And that was my favorite one because it had this weight to it and it just felt like better quality in my hands. Okay, so let's have a look at the bust line. In my last video about fashion and we were discussing bust lines, I discussed darts. This one doesn't have a dart, it has gathers instead, so you can see it right there. Things like gathers or darts, which is where a fabric kind of comes together like this and it kind of folds open. It's when you cut a little bit more than necessary and you cut it to a point and then you're able to sew that bit up so you're able to open it like that and it creates a curve so that I can go around the boobie. And the same can go for gathers. This one is gathered rather than darts, so I'm just kind of curious how that goes over because I'm bigger in the chest. So it seems like it'll be okay. I know that in the past, oftentimes when it came to bust lines sewed into things, when it came to fast fashion sites that are usually located in places like Asia, the Asian sizes didn't really account for larger bust sizes, so I usually spilled out of them and you just had puppies' noses all over the place. It's a nightmare. But this to me is actually very well made. The underskirt, so the underlay, which I tend to find with most of them from Shein, like all the underlays are made from sort of a cheap kind of Halloween fabric. I call it the classic Scream costume fabric. That's what it's made out of. But it is the underlay. As long as you don't mind the feel of it, depending upon, this one's not so bad. It's a little bit smoother, but there's some that are so rough and so coarse that it actually gives me chills and makes me cringe, and I can't take it. It's one of those fabrics. Everybody has that one thing that they touch that it makes you sick and it makes you cringe and you're like, get it away. So that kind of Halloween fabric material is one of those things for me. But fortunately, this one is a little bit smoother, so it's not so bad. But the overlay is much better. It's a higher quality. The mesh is good. It's got stretch to it. And this is one of the things I would say, yes. Yeah. Let me just check the bottom bit. Yeah, the end is serged. So that's another thing you want to look for. See how the end is serged like that? So when the ends are serged, I like the general look to it. It kind of gives that lettuce edging and it gives it kind of an antique, kind of vintagey kind of feel. But what I also like about it is that it's not going to tatter. So when you kind of close the ends like that and make sure that the fabric isn't just kind of left as is, particularly with something like mesh, it's going to eventually kind of fray. And it could be a great look if that's what you're going for, but it will compromise the integrity of the fabric. So it's best that if you want something frayed, do it yourself. Otherwise, when you get it, you want to make sure that they paid that extra bit of attention to detail and show you that it is. So I'm going to give you a better look here. So you see this? Since the color is different and it's black thread on green, you can actually see what I mean. So that end there, that's called a serge, and you need a machine called an overlocker or a serger to create that kind of, that look. And this is normally what they do for seams, but it works great on the ends of fabric. I like it as well because I like contrast stitching, but these seem to be serged at the end. So yeah, I would say for this one, thumbs up. It's gonna seem like I'm throwing things on the floor, but I'm actually throwing it on my sofa. provided I don't miss. All coming back to me now. Okay. This right here is a midi dress with snakes and roses. Again, done in mesh, and it came with a little camisole dress that you can wear underneath. And what I like about this is that you kind of get two dresses in one, because this is about, I would say this is like a knee length, maybe close to mini dress. You could just use this as a basic black dress to wear as is, to layer with other things. So you're kind of getting two dresses in one, and I love when things come with extra bits like that, because you can separate them. You can wear these separately. So it's like you either wear these together, or you can wear this out on its own. You can pair it with something different. So that is something that is definitely pro to me. It's well made, and I want to look at the fabric content. Polyester. So this is exactly what I was talking about. This is 100% polyester, but the feel, it's mimicking a cotton jersey knit. And this is sort of illustrating my point on, like, not all polyesters are created equal. And when I would go into thrift stores and I would find these like really thick, coarse, and just like really aggressive polyester dresses in this like really telltale fabric, that's what I thought all polyester was. And here we have something that could very easily be confused with a cotton jersey knit, which is also polyester. So, I mean, short of getting sort of your master's degree in polyester, it's going to be really hard to tell, but just try to look at reviews, look at pictures, do whatever you really can to kind of get the feel. If you have a local thrift store near you where, even though the stuff sucks, just kind of go in, look at fabric, and just feel things, and it'll really give you a good idea. It'll be kind of strange with you walking into a store and just kind of fondling clothes, but I'm sure worse things have happened in there. And here's the thing, I've gotten a few things from Shein with this particular mesh and have been pleasantly surprised because it's quite good. So, one-way stretch, two-way stretch. We love a good four-way stretch because, let's face it, we have curves here, there, and everywhere, and one-way stretch is just not going to work. So, give us the stretch. So this one is not serged on the bottom, it's just a regular hem, but as hems go, I'm going to sneeze. Yeah, as hems go, all right, what's this? Yep, we're fine. There was some loose thread, and I wasn't sure if I found a snag, because that's the fun thing about the overlocker. There's a blade on the other side as you go through where it cuts the excess fabric off. I always like to watch that part. I went with this. I went with a size medium, and I think that was the right choice. Usually I wear a size small, and I feel like with dresses like this, you want it to have a little bit of movement to it. You don't want anything, unless you want it super skimpy tight, go with that. But with this, I went with a size medium, and it seems like, I'll know once I try it on, but it seems like a size up is definitely the way to go with this. So for this one, I say yes. You get two dresses in one. They're well made. Incredibly inexpensive. As far as the print and everything like that, yes, it probably will date. I guess I was going for the prints this time around. Okay, I know why I chose this. Pretty in Pink, one of my favorite movies, and the character Iona. Iona was one of my favorite characters from Pretty in Pink. She's very quirky, very out there, and very eccentric, and she was always wearing the most unique and interesting clothes. And I remember this one scene, she was wearing this, I always pronounce this incorrectly, Xiangsam dress, and it was in this black and white fabric, and I wanted this dress so bad. And in this scene, she's wearing this white kind of bob wig with bangs, and she's got this elaborate sort of Cleopatra style eyes, and I'm going to see if I can find a picture for you. At any rate, this fabric made me think of Iona. So very different neckline, but we get the idea. Again, it is that same mesh as the snake dress. It's a little bit different because the underdress, it's attached. And the under part is, again, that sort of Halloween fabric, but again, it's not bottom of the barrel, so it's not going to touch your skin, and you're going to feel it kind of exfoliate you as you move. I hate that. But it doesn't feel bad. It has these bits on the side. It has this ruching, but it also has this cord where you can kind of pull it. I'm going to see how it works once I put it on, to where you can kind of mess with the fit and you can mess with the cut a little bit. I had a really good t-shirt DIY book. I'll put the link in the description. And I believe the women, I think their names were Sisters of Harlem. And this was many years ago. And they made the most incredible DIY tops. And they showed you how to transform t-shirts. And one of the designs showed you how to do this. And it was one of my favorite things once I learned it, because it was so easy. Because you were using the bits of the fabric that you cut off to create this cord here. So you didn't need anything. You just needed your oversized t-shirt. It was a great book, though. Okay, so here's the bust line. So I'm always iffy, and I'm surprised that I picked this up. Maybe I was blinded by the fabric and I was thinking Iona, but I normally don't go for sleeves quite like this, like cap sleeves with that ruching. And the reason is I can look a little bit buff in the arms, and I always feel self-conscious where I wear things like this. So things like cap sleeves, particularly cap sleeves, I tend to avoid. And if I wear anything no sleeve, it's either going to be short sleeve or deep. And the reason that I go deep in the armholes is because the deeper you go here, it kind of lengthens and thins out the arms, and it makes you look less like you're going to hurl someone's car across town. So I just want to really quickly give this a once over. This has darts in the bust. Okay, so if you can see the little triangle I was talking about earlier, see that? So that's a dart, and that again is going to help create the kind of dome shape or half dome shape you need to house the sisters here. And I like that at least Shein is paying extra attention to the fact that like boob space is definitely needed, and I think at least from the look of it, I should be well contained. And I'm actually into this trim here. The trim is really good. Normally the trim is a little bit like meh, but this one, I know it's not, but it feels like a doily. So it has like a little bit of a thicker feel. So one thing I found that is a little, see the way they ended this. See how they ended the bust line on this side with the doily lace trim. Okay, there we go. See the way they ended it? It ends exactly on the scallop, right at the end of the scallop. This one, what the hell is this? See how it goes up there? So rather than cut it off at the scallop, they just sort of like let it partially go to the next one and then cut it off, which doesn't create the most appealing look. So you kind of get what you pay for in this regard, but I think this is something that could have been avoided. I mean, it could be snipped off, that's not really a problem, but it's just kind of irritating that they didn't look at this and be like, oh, that's a problem, just snip it off. But you get what you pay for, you know? But as far as anything else, I don't really see any other flaws or issues that would cause any kind of concern, any structural issues. This is a nice stretchy kind of mesh, which is good because you want to have that stretch to it. This is elasticated here, elasticated here. So anything that's stretchy, elasticated, we want things that will give us ease of movement. We want things that are going to like grow and shrink with us, because let's face it, we are constantly in the process of growing and shrinking. As with everything, do not, if you're going to wash these in the washing machine, always on cold, never put them in the dryer. And I would always recommend washing things by hand, but again, wash on cold, no dryer, dry flat. Okay, that time I missed the sofa. Oh no. No, 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 no. So I'm going to show you what this is supposed to be. So that is what that dress is supposed to be. This is what I got. Now, not gonna lie, inside bust line, it's sewn pretty well. However, it's supposed to have that kind of bat on the bust, that kind of bat shape. It's not finished in any way. It's just sort of cut and left to its own devices. It's a horrible fabric. It is, remember I told you there are like varying degrees of Halloween costume fabric? This is bottom of the barrel, and to touch it is giving me like shivers. I don't like the feel. It's not a good fabric. The skirt's even worse. Yeah, if you look at the skirt. I mean, to give them their due, they serged the ends, but that's kind of like throwing glitter at a turd. I hate being hypercritical like that, but if it's something that you're spending your money on, I'm angry because it doesn't look like the picture at all. So I definitely would not recommend this. I don't even think I'm going to model this for you because I don't want to say maybe accessorize it up, make it look good, and potentially have you spend the money on something that you're going to get in the mail and be like, this looks like I got it from Spirit Halloween. Not even, more like Party City or Big Lots, because Spirit Halloween actually has some pretty good quality stuff. But this to me, yeah, the fabric, it's like, that's a no. It's a shame. It had potential, but I was very curious to see what it would look like in person. Oh, it's a lot shinier in person. It looked like a better quality satin, but it's definitely not. I bet if I looked at the fabric content, it will say 100% polyester, because they seem to love them some polyester over there. Yeah, 100% polyester. And I'm forever in awe when I see all of these different fabrics that look so physically different, and they're all polyester. Something very interesting. But I didn't expect it to be this shiny. So when I saw this, again, this kind of piqued my inner 90s teen who definitely needed that nurturing. So I'm going to give you a look. So to give you an idea of where I was going for with this, I was thinking of very much 90s shoegaze. I'm thinking of like Hope Sandoval standing there at the mic with something very whimsical and very sweet. And that's what this made me think of. It still has very much that look to it. It's just a lot shinier than I anticipated. Square necklines in the 90s were very, very popular. And then as the 90s kind of drew to an end and it got to the late 90s, early 2000s, these horrible boat necklines became in style where it was kind of like higher up and it went kind of out to here. And I remember those being popular. Never liked those. Probably because they didn't look right on me. I mean, it's put together well, it's sewn well. So one thing that I always I mention when it comes to anything from fast fashion, because you really want to stay as basic as possible, is zippers. Anything with zippers, because you don't want to give them the opportunity to give you a garment that self-destructs and by way of a zipper. So zippers can be very risky and very tricky. They're not easy to put in. I don't know if you've ever made clothing, but two things that are very difficult and I'm always forever in awe of are people that can sew in a zipper and do it properly, and people that can do sleeves, that can actually sew on and make a sleeve that looks like a sleeve. But when it comes to zippers, especially the concealed zipper, but it's kind of a clever way of hiding a zipper. And I get the sentiment, I understand it. When it comes to fast fashion, things are sewn very haphazardly, very fast, and things aren't always made up to scratch. So when it comes to things that you want to last you, I always kind of advise against anything with a zipper, because I always say it's like you're getting an item that could potentially self-destruct. And when it comes to zippers, the worst are the concealed ones, especially when, fortunately, this fabric is quite sleek. But if it's a fabric that's drapey in any way, if it's like a lace or a mesh, what you're doing is you're giving yourself the opportunity to catch any of that fabric in the zipper, like that. And then once you catch it, the zipper seizes up and it's as good as ruined. At least use caution. But other than that, I don't actually foresee any issues with the zipper. You just have to be super careful. I'm very interested to see what this looks like on. I think that despite the whole concealed zipper situation, I think it's well made. So, thumbs up. This one's heavy. That is a whole lot of just everything. Okay. When I say that I don't remember the things that I chose, I mean it. I don't have like a clear image in my head of the things that I chose, and I'm sitting here waiting with bated breath. Oh, what is it gonna? I don't remember, and it all kind of comes back to me. This one did not come back to me, but I can see why I chose it, because it reminds me of Free People, which is one of my favorite designers. Or it's one of my favorite brands. I love Free People. I love that kind of layered, flowy, bohemian look. I love that look. I love asymmetry. I love things that kind of hang, so you can kind of just accessorize it and put more hangy bits on it. I don't know. There's something about that look that is just, it's so pretty to me. But I've always been into that very ethereal sort of look anyway. And this reminds me of Free People. And if you are in any way familiar with the brand, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So what we have here is a maxi dress. It's a camisole top, and the bust has ruching in it, and it's done in a lace, but it's not true lace. You can see it's done kind of like laser cut, but it's still well done. It's stretchy. We have a few tiers here, a nice trim. How well is it put on though? Very stretchy. I like things that are stretchy. Stretchy things to me have a lot of promise, because I move a lot. I don't know if you ever watch me try to tell a story. I can't sit still. I'm always like this. And my grandma, whenever she used to babysit me, I was always moving and like running around. She'd be like, "Angela, you're making me drunk." I still can't stop moving around. So the straps on this, I'm usually not impressed by spaghetti straps when she undo it, because the straps are usually like the crap. they're really thin. Sometimes they're twisted. It's made of a cheap, like kind of Halloween-y kind of fabric, and I'm never impressed. It always looks like it's gonna like fall, and then, you know, you expose yourself at a party or something like that. But these, look, see for yourself. The bust is really nice. I actually really like this dress. I would wear this, like, I think I'm probably going to wear this weekend. So the underlay Get closer because there we go. So the underlay here, what a surprise. Scream costume material. But still, it's softer. It's not that kind of like abrasive one where it kind of gets caught on your nail. Ugh, I hate that. But out of all of them, out of everything, I'm actually the most impressed, I think, by the way that this one is sewn. This bust line has ruching. This one has the gathered bust line as opposed to the darts. Still quite effective. Elasticated here. No, it's not it's not elasticated here. I'm sorry. It looked like elastic. Nope, not elastic. But it is elasticated here. At the back. So yeah, it's elasticated at the back. So that's good. Want a little bit of movement there, because have you ever worn anything like, like a tank top or a camisole, something that's quite tight, and then the back, you could just kind of feel the threads against your skin, or you can feel the seam rubbing up against your skin, and then you take your top off and you're completely marked up by it. You have like these friction burns. But then again, that could just be me because I move around a lot. But anyway, if you've ever gotten those, I feel like this will kind of help alleviate this, or at least minimize it. So the strap itself is not elasticated. So I have a short distance. Something I've always had an issue with is the short distance between here and here. I am a short person. I'm not very tall at all. And a lot of women are, they have a longer distance between this area. And when you're buying things like bras and things and tank tops with the spaghetti straps, it tends to fall a little bit lower. So I would look for things that have the adjustable bra straps. And like the bane of my existence, you have the adjustable bra strap, and instead of going all the way around, it only goes like halfway up. And like that does nothing for me. We're not alleviating the issue here. We're still like down here. I need height. But this looks like it is a decent enough height to where I won't actually have that issue. Let's see, do I have anything else? All right, so that is it. So as for everything, I would say only one thing out of the bunch I would strongly advise against, but a lot of the tips and tricks that I really want to impart is that you always want to wash these in cold water if you're washing them in your washing machine. Cold water only, gentle cycle, and never ever apply heat in any way. Heat destroys. So you want to make sure that you don't put them in the dryer. If it's a nice day outside, hang them outside. Otherwise, places where I would dry my stuff in my house when I didn't want to dry anything in the dryer, if you can't do it outside, I like to put them on a hanger, and I'll hang them on the curtain rod in the shower, so that way everything drips down in the shower, or at least on the tile floor. Always make sure that you utilize the returns policy. Always make sure you read the reviews and look at the pictures. Any pictures. Something that sucks but is also beneficial, particularly in this case, is that when people have any sort of qualms, any complaints, any issues with something, they're more likely to complain than if they're happy or ecstatic with something. So if you find something on these websites, if you find something on Shein, you find like a top or a dress or pants or anything that you like, and you want to make sure that your money is going to be well spent and that this is going to be an item that lasts. Something that you're not buying now and is just going to be thrown away in 2 weeks time. You want to make sure that you look at those reviews. You want to make sure that you're reading the reviews. And another thing is that you want to make sure that you're not doing this frivolously. Like if you can afford independent designers, again, I'm not telling you how to live your life. But if you can afford the independent designers, if you can afford to support these artists that are working out of their home, do it every now and again. Because if you are doing it because you would much rather kind of get a truckload of stuff as opposed to a bag full, you need to kind of look into the implications of that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it informative. And now, without further ado, on to the try-on.
shadow.